somebody moves it in closer. There's a lot of concerns. Thank you much.
Thank you.
Karen Lane. Karen, I have you as the rep for Las Vegas Valley Humane Society, so 6.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm Karen Lane, President of the Las Vegas Valley Humane Society. I want to thank you for having this item on your agenda today. I want to thank Commissioner Macbeth for setting up the Trapping Regulation Committee, because I really do believe that we would not be here today, and we've come a long way from where we started off, if it hadn't have been for the committee, for the commissioners who served on that committee, as well as Tom Patton from Mount Charleston. I know this is not something you do very often, but I think it did accomplish what it intended to do, and that was to bring together a group of people who had the same concern, and that was trying to deal with the conflicts between people who weren't trappers and the trappers living in this area. I can tell you that the first meeting we ever attended at Endow with the Trapping Regulation Committee, I talked about the need that we had issues, and I had heard issues on Mount Charleston, and I had a trapper there who said, there are no issues on Mount Charleston. So if you think about where we've come in that time, and we've taken, and there's been a lot of meetings on this, and I think what's really important to look at is that I will say to you that the Las Vegas Valley Humane Society supports 419 as it is currently written. And the reason I say that is because what you're hearing is that the Mount Charleston people still have major concerns. They think that it should have been 1,000 feet instead of 200 feet, and I'm talking specifically about item 10E. I think that's where the issue, I think everybody else has agreement on this except for 10E. And what we've seen in the last couple of meetings is that the Mount Charleston people still feel that 200 feet is not enough. And what we're hearing from the trappers is that they don't want those roads included at all. So neither party is happy. And you've got one over here and one over here. And my view is that we've kind of reached a middle ground and we have a compromise. And that's probably a good compromise in terms of 419. And we should go with the item as it's indicated. We have to move forward. We have to move forward. This is not about status quo. There is no status quo anymore. Clark County may not be growing right now, but we've got over 2 million people. We need to understand that things are going to change. It's not going to stay the same. And what this commission, or what this Trapping Regulation Committee has attempted to do is try to deal with those changes, I think, in a very equitable manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephanie Meyers. And Stephanie, it says you're speaking on behalf of the Mount Charleston Town Board and Spring Mountain Volunteer Association. Are you the official spokesperson for both of those entities?
Yes. Stephanie Meyers, Lee Canyon. I'm representing the Mount Charleston Town Board and the Spring Mountain Volunteer Association. Thanks to the committee and the board for considering the situation of Southern Nevada trapping. Special thanks for adding Mount Charleston resident Tom Patton to represent Southern Nevada on the TRC. He's worked tirelessly to help you understand not only the geography, but also the danger that traps pose to our communities and to our tourists. There is no question that people, their families, and pets don't mix with traps, whose springs explode onto the leg or hand or any body part and hold it tight until the jaws are released. Traps are left in the wild, unattended, hidden under dirt, a roadside bomb to anything landing on it. The two things are incompatible with each other. Traps surprise and hurt people, spook horses, and injure our pets. Some responsible trappers understand this and voluntarily stay away from where people might be. However, other trappers do not. And they do need regulation. On the one hand, we have trappers who want to use Mount Charleston as a commercial enterprise, clear and simple. With their trapping license, they want the right to buy a bobcat, a fox, an animal that belongs to the people of the entire state of Nevada for their own personal gain. He isn't going to use that animal for anything but its pelt, and which he's going to sell to buyers from Russia and China. This is business. This is commerce. How many trappers are there in southern Nevada? 20 families? 30? On the other hand, we have the general population of Nevada who want to use Mount Charleston to recreate. The definition of recreate, to impart fresh life to. The general population of Las Vegas comes to Mount Charleston to renew their spirits, to camp, hike, bike, have a party, ski, get married, ride horses, have fun, to recreate. And how many unsuspecting people are in the general population of southern Nevada? Over 2 million. We get 2 million tourists a year coming up to Mount Charleston. That's documented. And we have hundreds of residents, so do the math. 20 or 30 families on one side, 2 million visitors plus residents on the other side in the south. Mike and Sally are from Canada. They see a coupon. The resort and the lodge too is pet friendly. So they bring Rufus. They walk across the Kyle Canyon Road, up Powerline Road for an escape, and wham. Rufus is only 200 feet from that road and he's caught in a trap. Now their vacation is ruined. John and Mary live in Henderson, and John says, hey, it's hot down here, let's go up camping at Mount Charleston. They drive up, but they quickly find that McWilliams, Dolomite, and even Old Mill are closed. Just about all the campgrounds in Upper Kyle and Lee Canyons are shut down by the U.S. Forest Service for recreation, for reconstruction to use up grant monies. Someone tells them about Max Canyon Group camps. They find it, set up camp, no restrooms there. Little Patty's only 7. She's shy and she's private. Hey, Mom, I'm going to find a bush. Mom follows her. Patty wanders about 200 feet, reaches behind herself, and wham, her hand is caught in a hidden trap at the wrist. Debbie screams. Mom runs, grabs her, but they can't move. Debbie's stuck in a leg-hold trap. Her dad doesn't know how to release the trap. He's never even seen a trap before. They finally get help, but it's ruined their family time together. Both of these scenarios are possible. Thank you for protecting the upper trails of Mount Charleston in your new draft map, although 1,000 feet is not nearly enough. Also a half mile from residences. We think both should be 1 mile. On the roads, these are not just roads, they are rambling, winding, spur-filled campgrounds. Here's the sign for, this is Blue Tree. You've given this in your draft 1,000 feet. Here's Max Canyon, same 4 miles, and you've given it 200 feet. It's exactly the same as the Blue Tree, and I gave that 1,000. This means 200 feet from Max Canyon, where my own dog Sunshine was injured by a trap requiring surgery on a warm December day. And by the way, this was just beyond 1 mile and just beyond 200 feet. Champion Road, Max Canyon, Cardamine, Powerline, Telephone Canyon, 200 feet is not enough to protect the public. I did an experiment. I measured off 200 feet and had someone hold my dog at 1, called him. How long did it take him to cover it? 10 seconds. 200 feet, 10 seconds. It is outrageous that the Clark County Advisory Board to Manage Wildlife would suggest deleting these roads from your draft, which are so much more than roads. It just shows you how out of touch and unrepresentative they are. The people have told you what they want. The communities of Mount Charleston, here's the letter from the Mount Charleston Town Advisory Board, and Mountain Springs, here's the letter from Mountain Springs. This is the town board. The only 2 communities within the Spring Mountain Recreation Area have written you letters this year pleading for 1 mile barrier between all traps, roads, trails, campgrounds, and buildings. They have also begged for stricter regulations. And now, just last night, the Spring Mountain Volunteer Association has joined them, plus the National Sierra Club.
30 seconds.
It's time for trappers to move further away from the general population to practice their commercial enterprise. It is commerce. The people have told you what they need. With these letters, disregard them at your own peril. In conclusion, there is a disaster waiting to happen on the Spring Mountain National Recreation Area. And there are some people in this room who are just pretending it's not going to happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Tom Patton.
Good afternoon, Tom Patton, Mount Charleston resident, also a member of the Trapping Regulation Committee. I can speak now as a citizen. I just wanted to say that the draft in its present form, I do believe is about as complete as we've been able to get it at this point. I think contrary to the recommendation of the CAB, it's important to keep those 5 roads in the document, because this provides a framework by which in the future we can see whether this is really going to work or not. At this point, there's nothing in place. What we put in place now, I think, really does a good job of identifying some important areas. The 200 feet versus 1,000 feet, that's a compromise with different opinions all around it. So once again, I think the more important part is that it creates this framework by which we can put it in place and then wait and see what happens. And if any incidences occur from here on out, that framework will enable us to identify much more precisely what's right and what's wrong with what we've done. So I just urge you to go ahead and put it in place as it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom, and I want to thank you for your time on the committee. You didn't just show up to the meetings and everything. You chased a lot of information in between meetings and really brought a lot to the table, and I thank you for that.
That's all the cards that I had on this particular item. I do have Rex Flowers with an open card.
Rex Flowers, Washoe County Advisory Board. We voted to deny the right as it is, the write-up. What you have in front of you today is the 3rd version we received in our packets from NDOW. One hard copy, another copy went online as of Monday that was a different support material. That surfaced as email about Wednesday or Thursday right before our meeting. When we got to our meeting, we were then informed there was a 3rd write-up on this, and I would not allow it to be presented because nobody could give me a hard copy to be entered into the record. Nobody could give me hard copies to submit to the members of our advisory board or for the public on hand. So we had to work off of the 2nd write-up, the LCB version. There was a lot of concern in Washoe County that we didn't have any input from trappers, how they felt about it and such, and we were a little disoriented, dysfunctional because of lack of proper material to work with. Thank you.
Thank you, Rex. The last card, Suzanne, did you have any more cards on your desk?
Come on up.
But Paul Dixon.
Paul's gonna sit. I got a card. You can sit. Joe Krim representing myself. We did not put this on our agenda because we didn't feel that we could make a good educated decision on this, but after looking at the information that came out of the Clark CAB, I myself would like to support the Clark CAB's recommendations for the Mount Charleston area. Not the CAB, this is personal.
For the record, Paul Dixon, Chairman of the Clark County CAB. I'm going to defer the actual discussion on the trapping regulation to John Sullivan, who's part of my board. But I did want to say things because I've heard several, the first testimony and then Stephanie Meyers' testimony indicate that the Clark CAB did not represent the public of Clark County. I've had, as chairman, I've had 4 meetings, and I got a lot of crap, where I had 4 meetings that I devoted to putting trapping issues on there and giving public comment. Out of that, I would say the people who attended, I would say less than 20 people who were against trapping attended and spoke. Some of them claiming they represented 2 million people, but I don't see signatures to say they do that. I had people on the trapping side say they represented the Trapping Association, and I have 300 signatures and emails to back up that they represent that organization, because they've come to me. So when people say that I haven't done my job at representing, I did a very fair job in my viewpoint as a cab chairman, and it's not a numbers game, but it comes down to understanding I have to take the public input that's at hand in front of me, and I also have to weigh whether or not it's a personal view of somebody saying, there is too many people in this valley, and I feel that they should feel the way that I feel. I mean, that's not the way that it works. I'm here to make sure that we do things. We talk about public safety. We made this, they keep making it a public safety issue. There are more kids hurt in school zones where you have a 1,000-foot standoff for driving, speeding, or sex offenders than have ever been hurt with dogs, and there's been no recorded instances of humans being hurt just to worry. Are we going to regulate for a worry, or are we going to regulate to a real problem? And I think Joel stated it pretty well, that this problem has been created and they keep wanting to set more and more standoff. If you live on Mount Charleston, you have no more rights to the land up there than I have living here in Las Vegas. And if I understand that, they should understand that. They should also understand, in my viewpoint, that a majority of the tourism that occurs on Mount Charleston occurs, probably 90% of it occurs not during trapping season. And maybe with a little bit of signage and education, you'd never have another person or dog, potential person or a dog ever hurt in that system up there. And so I'm really kind of torn by the fact that I think I've done my due diligence as a cab chair to take in the majority of the public. I allowed people to come to 4 meetings, the same person or same group of people, and
30 seconds.
and basically testify the same thing every time. I mean, at one point I had over 100 people at a meeting, and for me to have 100 people at a meeting is ginormous. As some of you remember, Cecil Freddy used to tell me I had 10 people attending my meetings. I now average 50. And it's always because of the big issues that hit. Thank you.
John Sullivan.
Yeah, thank you, Paul. My name is John Sullivan. I'm a resident of Clark County. I've lived here 21 years. I'm on the County Advisory Board, and Paul asked me to report to you all on our cab and how we feel about this issue. We had somewhat of a conclusive meeting last Tuesday, so this is very fresh in our minds. We went over the exact same regulations that you have before us today, and I think we pretty much covered them in length. Before I go into the cab report, I just want to say one thing personally. I think you all, the 3 of you commissioners, served on the committee, and I have to say I think you did an excellent job. I've heard that from the people that are on the other side of the fence on this issue, that you gave everybody a fair shake. You came down here, you learned the area, you learned the people, you learned the issues, and I just want to say, it's as a sportsman, it's nice to see that people take these issues so seriously, and you work in a very scientific, meticulous fashion. What we're talking about today is regulations where it says several times, trapping is prohibited, trapping is prohibited, trapping is prohibited. And I agree, trapping should be prohibited in some areas, and I'll go into that in a minute. But it's nice to see that you all, our commissioners who are entrusted with making these regulations, are not rushed by emotion. You came down here in a very meticulous fashion, and you went through it step by step by step. And if we're going to prohibit areas of our state from the sportsmen to use, I think it's nice to know that you gentlemen take this very seriously, and you go about it in a very meticulous, scientific, and thoughtful process. I want to thank you for that. On the cab, like Chairman Dixon just reported, we've spent an enormous amount of time on this issue. We've heard from the public, like you have, over, or probably more so, over and over and over again on the same things. And we've endured some very difficult meetings, hour after hour. And I think we've kind of boiled it down. We look at these regulations that the committee has drafted, and the Clark County Advisory Board agrees with about 90% of what you've all come up with. We agree that the trails should have the 1,000 feet standoff distance, and by my count we have 12 trails. Some of these trails are 10 miles long. By my count we have, when you include the trails, the campgrounds, the picnic areas, and that one tree dispersed recreation area, we have probably 50 square miles now that trapping will be prohibited. Some, by my rough count, tens of thousands of acres, 32,000 plus acres are being closed. But we agree that the trails should be closed. There haven't been problems along the trails. This is kind of a preemptive measure. But I think that the trails. There are certain places in the state where hunting is not appropriate and trapping is not appropriate. And these popular hiking trails are those areas. So the 1,000 feet standoff from these 12 trails that are designated in the regulations we have before us, the draft regulations, I think are appropriate. And the CAB voted the same way, Clark County CAB. The campgrounds as well. By my count, we have 6 campgrounds, 1,000 feet standoff. 6 picnic areas, we agree. And then that one Blue Tree dispersed recreation area, which includes 4 more trails, 1,000 feet standoff. Section D, trapping is prohibited within half mile of residences in the Spring Mountain National Recreation Area, huge area. We agree with that. Let's close trapping to a half mile within those residences. The only area we disagree with, and that comes to these dirt roads, these Section E. Trapping is prohibited within 200 feet of each side of the following designated roads. And why we took issue with that, I think it's very important. We're setting a precedent here, probably statewide, and if there's a dog caught somewhere out in the state, and usually it's in a remote part of the state, we should not automatically say, let's close trapping in that area. We shouldn't make that jump. I think most of the times, including these 4 areas, these are remote areas. These are dirt roads that are not maintained by the county, they're not maintained by the state. These are areas that hunting and trapping are just as appropriate as any other use, including walking your dog. I could even argue that unleashed dogs are probably a less appropriate use in a wildlife area than is trapping, which is a scientific management tool, highly used by our biologists and an excellent tool for predator control. So we take issue with the 5 roads. So we ask ourselves, if there's a dog caught somewhere, we ask you, the commission, if there's a dog caught somewhere, let's focus on that area. What is the use of that area? If it's close to a trail, a campground, a high populated area, where the predominant use is something else, I would say close it. If the predominant use is a remote area where hunting and trapping is just as appropriate as something else, I would say let's leave it as is. A dog being caught in a trap is not the end of the world. There's a lot worse things that can happen to a dog out there than being snapped in a trap for about 5 minutes. So our recommendation from the County Advisory Board is to keep these draft regulations as is, as applied to the trails, the campgrounds, the picnic areas, and the only change we recommend is for the 5 roads in question. And we do think it's appropriate for 1 mile, from a 1 mile section of Max Canyon Road. It's the road number is 073, the first mile from the intersection of Highway 156. We think that stretch of that road is different in character than the other. These other roads are narrow 2 tracks, and but that 1 mile stretch, you can take a 2-wheel drive vehicle up and down that road. It's kind of a little racetrack. So we agree with you, with the committee on that particular stretch of road, that we think that 1 mile stretch of that road should have a standoff distance. We think the other 4 roads in question should not have additional restrictions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Reiss. And Mike, you're representing the Southern Nevada Coalition for Wildlife?
That is correct. But for full disclosure, I do sit on the Clark County CAB, but I'm speaking as the president of the Southern Nevada Coalition for Wildlife. Okay. Again, sitting here today watching you guys, I want to commend you. Mr. Hunter, looking to get his hunting license back. You guys took your due diligence. You looked at it very intently. As you guys have come down here, you've had trapping committee meetings. You didn't take it lightly. I, as a sportsman and represent a lot of sportsmen, I appreciate that, and I want to commend you. I want to take a page out of Commissioner Rain's comments today. We judge by the merits that are in front of us. Not what's going to happen out in front, not what happened before. The merits in front of us. We had no dog strap this year. We had no dog strap last year. This week alone, we had a hiker get lost on Mount Charleston. Search and rescue came out. Can't tell you how many thousands of dollars were spent trying to find an individual lost on a trail. Do we get dogs lost? Probably so. Do you see us running to the microphone to say, okay, let's close down the trails? These people don't even know how to walk on their own trails. No. We don't want to rush to a quick judgment, but some of the comments that I've heard just in the last 20 minutes, move them farther out. Well, that's in the future. We don't like what's going on now. We haven't had anything. What are we basing this on? Another comment I heard is, let's see how this works out. Again, that's in the future. We have no animals caught. The animals that have been caught over the last 15 years, that you look at the odds of how many traps have been set out in the wild and how many animals have been caught. Now, mind you, no animal has been killed in a trap. It's been caught. Okay? Now, Chairman Dixon talked about kids in school zones and stuff like that. This year alone, we've had kids killed, bus stops, crosswalks. I'd venture to say, and I've said this on the record before, we have more people killed, injured, maimed on the way up to Mount Charleston or on the way back than we've ever had pets. Do you see anything going in act because of that? No. The merits before us today is there's been no accidents, no animals caught. I commend the Trapping Association for taking the high road, coming in and saying, okay, we'll go with the restriction on the trails. It was not unanimous on the cab. One guy voted against it. He wanted more lenient. I voted yes, but I also made a comment. I think it should be 500 feet. And I backed it up with saying, when you tell the trapper you're gonna go 1,000 feet off the trail, you're not talking 1,000 feet. You're talking 2. He's gotta walk back to set one trap, 3/8 of a mile. You get a trapper that's out there in November, December, January, and February, and he's out and he's going to set a trap, and he looks around. There isn't anybody out there for him to talk to see. There's basically nobody out on the trails. And he says to himself, what did I do wrong? Why do I have to go this far out? There's nobody even out here. Where's the justice? I agree that we all need to work for zero tolerance. By God, the campaigns today on no texting while we're driving, you know, seatbelt laws, DUIs. I think everybody in this room would agree we don't want to see anything caught. We don't want to see a kid. We don't want to see a horse. We don't want to see a pet, anything. We talk about horses getting spooked from traps. I ride horses in Mount Charleston. I've yet to be thrown, but I've had a lot of twigs, a lot of branches, and a lot of stuff, even flags hanging on a tree that have spooked a horse. I have not been injured because of that. I have rode with somebody that has. Do we say don't ride horses in Mount Charleston anymore because of this and this and this? No. We had a comment from one of the people in the public at our cab meeting that said, I live at Lake Mead, I'm a fisherman, but I have no more rights to the lake of saying who uses it than the people in Mount Charleston have about the roads that are in their own community. It is a multi-use. Please consider that. Thank you.